My name is Harold Mercer. I'm 67 years old. And 3 weeks ago, my daughter-in-law looked me dead in the eye and told me I had 48 hours to move out of the house I built with my own hands. She said it calmly, like she was canceling a magazine subscription. She had no idea that I'd spent 38 years as a forensic accountant for the IRS. She had no idea that I'd already found the second set of books she was keeping. And she certainly had no idea that the trust document she never bothered to read contained a clause that would cost her everything: the house, the cars, and the $1.8 million she thought she'd already stolen. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on the woman who tried to erase me from my own family, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you've ever been underestimated by someone who thought they were smarter than you, hit that like button and subscribe, because you're going to love how this ends. It started, like most betrayals do, with kindness. 14 months ago, my wife Ruth passed away. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and merciless. We'd been married 41 years. She was the loud one, the one who filled every room. When she died, the silence in our home in Savannah, Georgia, a 3-story colonial we'd restored together over 2 decades, became a living thing. It pressed on my chest. It sat in Ruth's empty chair at breakfast. It followed me from room to room like a dog I couldn't feed. My son Kevin called every Sunday. He lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, with his wife Denise. Kevin was 39. Worked as a regional sales director for a medical device company. Good job, decent money, nothing spectacular. Denise was 36, beautiful in that sharp, angular way that always made me slightly uneasy, like admiring a piece of modern art that might fall off the wall and cut you. 3 months after Ruth's funeral, Kevin drove down to Savannah alone. He sat with me on the back porch, the one overlooking Ruth's garden, her roses, her hydrangeas, the Japanese maple we'd planted the year Kevin was born. "Dad," he said, and his voice had that careful, rehearsed quality I recognized from my years of interviewing people who were about to lie to me. "I've been thinking. This house is too much for you. It's 3 stories. Your knee is shot. You're eating cereal for dinner. Mom would hate this." He wasn't wrong about any of it. "Denise and I want you to come live with us," he said. "We just found a place in Myers Park. Big lot. 5 bedrooms. There's a mother-in-law suite on the ground floor with its own bathroom and a private entrance to the garden. It's perfect. You'd never be alone again." I looked at my son. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. The loneliness was killing me faster than any disease. "The house is listed at $1.6 million, he continued. "We can swing the mortgage on our salaries, but the down payment." He trailed off. He didn't need to finish. I was a forensic accountant. I could read a balance sheet at 40 paces. "How much?" I asked. "If you sold this place and contributed, say, $900,000 as your share, we could put 40% down. Low monthly payments. You'd have the suite. You'd have family. You'd have grandkids running around eventually." Grandkids. Ruth had wanted grandchildren the way some people want oxygen. She'd talk about it in the hospital, her hand thin as paper in mine. "Make sure they know me. Harold," she'd whisper. "Tell them about my garden." I sold the Savannah house in 6 weeks. I got $950,000 for it, every cent of my retirement. Every dollar. Ruth and I had saved over 4 decades of careful, disciplined living. I wired it to the escrow account for the new house in Myers Park. The day I moved in, Kevin carried my suitcases to the ground floor suite. It was exactly as promised. Spacious, with wide doors for my bad knee, a walk-in shower with a bench, and French doors that opened to a small flagstone patio bordered by crepe myrtles. Denise had even put a vase of fresh flowers on the nightstand. "Welcome home, Dad," she'd said, kissing my cheek. Her perfume smelled expensive. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. For 3 months, things were fine. Not warm. Not the family I'd imagined, but fine. Denise was polite in that way that felt like a performance. She called me Harold, never Dad. She kept the house immaculate. She didn't work. She'd quit her job in pharmaceutical sales shortly after they married, claiming she wanted to focus on the home. Kevin seemed happy. I tried to be. Then the erosion began. It started small. Denise mentioned she needed the storage closet in my suite for her holiday decorations. Then she needed the second shelf in the bathroom for her skincare products. Then she started using my private patio entrance as a shortcut to the garden shed. Each request was delivered with a sweet smile and a reasonable explanation. Each one shaved a thin layer off my territory. I recognized the tactic. I'd seen it 1,000 times in financial fraud cases. It's called salami slicing. You don't steal $1 million at once. You take a penny at a time until the account is empty and the victim never notices. 7 months after I moved in, Denise made her real move. It was a Wednesday evening. Kevin was traveling for work, a sales conference in Dallas. Denise and I were eating dinner. She'd made salmon. It was good. I told her so. She put her fork down. Harold, I need to talk to you about something important. I set my glass of iced tea down carefully. In my career, that sentence always preceded either a confession or an ambush. Her face told me which one this was. Kevin and I are trying to get pregnant, she said. We've been seeing a fertility specialist. Dr. Nguyen says I need to minimize physical stress, and honestly, the layout of this house is working against us. We need the ground floor suite for the nursery. The specialist says having the baby's room close to the kitchen and the main living area is critical for my recovery after delivery. I can't be going up and down stairs with a newborn. I looked at her. There are 3 empty bedrooms upstairs, Denise. All of them are right next to yours. Her face tightened. Just for a second. A crack in the porcelain. Dr. Nguyen specifically said, ground floor. It's a medical recommendation, Harold. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't necessary. And where would I go? She reached across the table and touched my hand. Her fingers were cold. We've already prepared the bonus room above the garage. It's actually lovely. Kevin insulated it last weekend. It has a window. We put a space heater in there for you. The bonus room above the garage. I'd been up there once. It was an unfinished space with plywood floors, exposed rafters, and the constant smell of motor oil seeping up from below. The window she mentioned was a single-pane porthole the size of a dinner plate. There was no bathroom. I'd have to walk down the garage stairs, cross the driveway, and re-enter the main house through the back door every time I needed to use the toilet. At 67 years old, with a knee replacement. No, I said. That was our agreement. The ground floor suite. That's why I invested $950,000 into this house. Her eyes went flat. The warmth evaporated like morning dew on hot concrete. It wasn't an investment, Harold. It was a gift. You gave that money freely. There are no strings attached. That sentence hit me like ice water. I'd heard it before hundreds of times, in hundreds of fraud cases. It was the first line of defense every embezzler used. It was a gift. I'd like to discuss this with Kevin when he gets back, I said. Kevin agrees with me, she said. We discussed it last night. He thought you'd understand. I sat there, my salmon going cold, and felt something I hadn't felt in 14 months. Not grief, not loneliness, something sharper. It was the instinct I'd honed over 38 years of tracking people who lied for a living. The instinct that said, something is very, very wrong here, and you need to find out what it is before they bury you. Kevin came home Friday. I met him in the kitchen Saturday morning. He wouldn't look at me. He poured his coffee, staring at the counter. Kevin, about the suite, he sighed. Dad, please, don't make this a fight. Denise needs it. The baby. Is Denise pregnant? He hesitated. That hesitation 1 second too long told me everything. Not yet. But we're trying. And the doctor said, I'd like to hear it from the doctor. He looked at me then. And I saw something I recognized from decades of interrogation rooms. Shame. He was ashamed, but he wasn't going to fight for me. He'd already surrendered. Whatever Denise wanted, Denise would get. My son was a good man in many ways, but he was weak where it mattered most. Dad, It's temporary, he said. Just until the baby comes. Then we'll figure something else out. Temporary. The most dangerous word in the English language. Every prison sentence is temporary. Every dictatorship is temporary. But I didn't argue. I didn't fight. Not because I was weak. Because I was a forensic accountant. And a forensic accountant never tips off the suspect before the audit is complete. All right, I said quietly. I'll move my things this weekend. I moved into the garage apartment on Sunday. Kevin helped carry my dresser up the narrow stairs. He was sweating, avoiding my eyes. He set it down on the plywood floor, which creaked ominously under the weight. I'll bring you a better lamp tomorrow, he muttered, and left. His footsteps on the stairs were fast, almost running. The garage door closed below me, with a mechanical groan. I stood in the center of that room. The space heater hummed in the corner, barely making a dent in the November chill. Through the porthole window, I could see the main house, warm and lit. I could see the French doors of my old suite. Denise was already inside. She was measuring the walls with a tape measure, her phone pressed between her shoulder and ear, laughing about paint colors. That night, the temperature dropped to 38 degrees. The space heater clicked and struggled. I lay under 2 blankets and Ruth's old quilt, listening to the garage door opener below me cycle open at 11 p.m. when Kevin came home late, then slammed shut with a vibration that shook the floor. The smell of exhaust fumes drifted up through the floorboards. My knee throbbed from the stairs. At 2 a.m., I had to use the bathroom. I put on my coat and shoes, walked down the garage stairs in the dark, crossed the cold driveway, and entered the house through the back door. The house was silent. The hallway was warm. I could smell Denise's candles. I used the guest bathroom and walked back out into the cold. As I passed the kitchen, I saw a glow. A laptop, open on the counter, its screen casting a blue-white light. I stopped. The screen showed an email inbox. It wasn't Kevin's. He used Gmail for everything. This was a Yahoo account, an old one. The name at the top read, D. Mercer, private. Denise's private email. In my career, I'd been authorized to examine thousands of private accounts. I'd found offshore transfers, shell companies, and hidden assets that people thought were invisible. But this wasn't my career. This was my family. I looked at the screen. The most recent email was from a name I didn't recognize, Victor Kaplan. The subject line read, Timeline, update. I shouldn't have read it. I read it. The email was short. D, quit stalling. The buyer in Raleigh is getting impatient. He's offering $2. 1M. If you can close before March. You need to get the old man's name off the trust amendment, or this falls apart. Call me. V. The old man. $2. N million. Get his name off the trust amendment. My hands weren't shaking. They were perfectly still. 38 years of discipline does that to you. I took my phone out of my robe pocket. I photographed the email. I photographed the one below it, and the one below that. I went back 3 months. Then I closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it, screen angle, brightness, everything. I walked back to the garage, climbed the stairs, and sat on my bed. I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. My mind was doing what it had done professionally for nearly 4 decades, building a case. Over the next 2 weeks, I conducted the quietest, most thorough audit of my life. I started with the mail. Every morning, I was up at 5:30. Before either of them stirred, I intercepted every envelope. I photographed statements, then placed them back in the mailbox as if they'd never been touched. What I found made my blood run cold. They were drowning. 4 credit cards maxed out a combined $87,000 in debt, a personal loan of $40,000 from a local bank. The mortgage payments were 3 months behind. Kevin's income was solid, about $145,000 a year, but their spending was astronomical. I traced the charges. $3,200 at Neiman Marcus, $1,000 $800 at a Charlotte boutique I'd never heard of. A monthly recurring charge of $650 to something called VK Consulting. I searched the name. Victor Kaplan was a real estate broker in Raleigh. They weren't just spending beyond their means. They were bleeding out. And the only asset big enough to stop the hemorrhage was the house my $950,000 had bought. I called my attorney, Jim Reeves. Jim was 71, semi-retired, sharp as a tack, and meaner than a copperhead when you needed him to be. He'd been my lawyer for 20 years. Jim, I need you to pull the Myers Park property file, the trust document, all of it. Harold. What's going on? I told him. All of it. The garage, the emails, the debt, Victor Kaplan. The line was quiet for 10 seconds. Then Jim said, very slowly, Harold, do you remember what you made me add to the trust deed? The provision I told you was overkill? I remembered. When we structured the purchase, I'd insisted that the land, the lot itself, be held in the Mercer family trust, with me as sole trustee. Kevin and Denise owned the house, the structure. But the dirt it sat on? That was mine. And the trust contained what Jim had called the nuclear option, a morality clause. If any beneficiary engaged in financial fraud, misrepresentation, or attempted to encumber the trust property without the trustee's written consent, the trust could claw back every dollar dispersed and reclaim the land. 30 days notice. No appeals. I remember, I said. Harold, if they're trying to sell this house behind your back through a third-party broker, that's textbook breach. They can't sell a structure on land they don't own. And if this Kaplan character is shopping a deal at $2.1 million without disclosing the land trust, that's fraud, not just a contract violation. That's criminal fraud. I know, I said. But I need more. I need to hear it from her. Why? Because Kevin is still my son. And I need him to see it for himself. Jim paused. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time the old man took a vacation. I told Kevin and Denise I was going to visit an old colleague in Tampa. A fishing trip. 2 weeks. I need to clear my head, I said, making my voice sound tired and defeated. This transition has been hard on me. Denise practically packed my bag for me. Oh, Harold, that's wonderful. You deserve it. She walked me to my car, squeezed my arm, and waved goodbye with the enthusiasm of a woman watching her prison sentence get commuted. I drove to the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Charlotte. I checked into a suite on the 14th floor. I unpacked my laptop, my files, and a recording device I'd purchased at a security store on Independence Boulevard. Before I'd left, while they were both at brunch, I'd installed 3 small cameras. One in the living room, angled to cover the front door and the dining table. One in the kitchen, focused on the counter where Denise kept her laptop. And one in my old suite, the nursery that, 2 weeks after I'd moved out, still had no crib, no baby clothes, and no evidence of pregnancy whatsoever. Instead, it had been repainted a deep burgundy and filled with a treadmill, a vanity mirror, and a rack of clothes that cost more than my first car. From my hotel room, I watched. The first night was mundane. They ordered Thai food. They watched television. Kevin went to bed early. Denise stayed up scrolling her phone. The second night, Kevin was traveling again. Denise made a phone call. I heard every word through the kitchen camera's microphone. Victor, it's me. He's gone. He went to Florida or whatever. Listen, we need to move fast. Kevin's getting cold feet. A pause while Victor spoke. I don't care about his feelings. The deal in Raleigh closes in 6 weeks. We need clean title. The old man's trust is the only thing blocking this sale. Another pause. I'll handle it. I've been working on a power of attorney. I found a notary who won't ask questions. Once I have Harold's signature, or something close enough, we can file the amendment and remove the trust lien. Then the house is free and clear. She laughed. Cold. Brittle. A sound that made me think of glass breaking on marble. Kevin will do whatever I tell him. He always does. And by the time Harold figures it out from his little fishing trip, we'll have closed, and the money will be in an account he can't touch. I saved the recording. Every second of it. She wasn't just planning to sell the house behind my back. She was planning to forge my signature on a legal document to remove the trust's claim on the property. That wasn't a family dispute. That was a felony, forgery, fraud, conspiracy. In the state of North Carolina, that carried up to 5 years. I didn't call Jim yet. I waited. I needed one more thing. Oh. It came on day 5. Denise invited Victor Kaplan to the house. I watched them through the living room camera. He was a tall, tan man in a blue sport coat. He carried a leather portfolio. They sat at my dining table, the table where I'd eaten Thanksgiving dinner 2 months ago, and spread out documents. The comparable in Myers Park sold for $2.3 million last quarter, Victor said. We list at $2. 1. We'll have multiple offers within a week. After paying off the mortgage and the credit cards, you're looking at roughly $800,000 clean. Split, however you want. Denise smiled. Split. That's cute. Victor, you get your 6% commission. I get the rest. Kevin gets divorce papers. Victor raised an eyebrow. That wasn't the original arrangement. The original arrangement was, before I spent 3 years pretending to love a man whose idea of romance is showing me his quarterly sales reports. The arrangement has evolved. She leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. We close the sale. I take the proceeds and move to Miami. You get your commission and a very generous bonus for keeping your mouth shut. Kevin gets nothing, because Kevin signed everything I put in front of him without reading a single word. Just like his father. She sat back and crossed her legs. The Mercer men. Smart enough to make money. Too stupid to keep it. I saved that recording too. Then I called Jim. File everything, I said. The trust clawback. The fraud complaint. Send it all. When? Tomorrow morning. Process server at 9 a.m. And Jim, call the Mecklenburg County DA's office. I'm filing a criminal referral. Forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted theft by deception. Jim was quiet for a moment. Harold, are you sure about the criminal route? This will destroy her. She was going to forge my signature, sell my land, steal $800,000, and leave my son with nothing. I spent my career putting people in prison for less. Fair enough. What about Kevin? I looked out the hotel window at the Charlotte skyline. Somewhere out there, my son was sleeping peacefully in a house built on my money, married to a woman who was about to rob him blind. Kevin gets the truth, I said. What he does with it is up to him. The process server arrived at the Myers Park house at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. I watched through the camera. Kevin was at work. Denise answered the door in a silk robe. Denise Mercer? Yes, you've been served. She took the envelope. She tore it open right there in the doorway. I watched her face as she read. First page, confusion. Second page, her brow furrowed. Third page, the trust termination clause. Fifth page, the criminal referral notice. The color didn't drain from her face. It collapsed, like a building imploding in slow motion. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. The papers shook in her hands. She called Kevin. I heard her through the camera, her voice a shrill, panicked shriek I'd never heard before. Kevin, get home. Get home right now. Your father is suing us. Oh my God, he's pressing charges. Kevin. He knows. He knows everything. Kevin called me 20 minutes later. His voice was the voice of a drowning man. Dad. Dad, what did you do? There's a man here. He gave Denise papers. She's hysterical. She says you're suing us? She says, Dad. She says there's a criminal complaint? What is happening? Come to the Ritz-Carlton downtown, I said. Room 1412. Come alone. Don't bring Denise. He arrived 40 minutes later. His tie was loosened. His eyes were red. He sat on the edge of the hotel bed and stared at me like I was a stranger. Dad, please tell me this is a mistake. Denise says she's beside herself. She says you're trying to take the house. She says you're accusing her of fraud. Dad, she's my wife. I opened my laptop. I turned it to face him. I pressed play. He watched the kitchen recording first. Denise's voice, crystal clear. I'll handle it. I found a notary who won't ask questions. Once I have Harold's signature or something close enough. Kevin's face went white. Then I played the living room recording. Victor Kaplan at the dining table. The sale price. The plan. And then Denise's voice. Cold and final. Kevin gets divorce papers. The Mercer men. Smart enough to make money. Too stupid to keep it. My son didn't move. He didn't breathe. He just stared at the screen as his wife, the woman he loved, the woman he'd chosen over his own father, methodically, cheerfully planned to rob him of everything and disappear. When the recording ended, the room was silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning. Kevin sat there for a long time. A tear ran down his cheek. He didn't wipe it. Dad, he finally whispered. I didn't know. I know you didn't. She was going to forge your signature. Yes. She was going to divorce me. Yes. She was going to take everything. Yes. He put his face in his hands. The sound that came out of him was not crying. It was the sound of a man feeling the floor disappear beneath his feet. What do I do? He said into his hands. That depends entirely on you. He looked up. What do you mean? The trust clawback is already in motion. In 30 days, the land reverts to me. The house sitting on it becomes trust property. As for Denise, the criminal referral is with the DA. Forgery and fraud. That's out of my hands now. Victor Kaplan will have his broker's license suspended by month's end. Kevin stared at me. And me? You're not named in the criminal complaint. You're a victim, Kevin. A fool, but a victim. He flinched at the word. Good. He needed to flinch. But here's what I need you to understand. I continued. I paid $950,000 for a home and a family. I got a garage and a con artist. You stood by while she moved me into a room that smelled like motor oil. You stood by because it was easier than standing up. He opened his mouth to speak. I held up my hand. I'm not finished. I've bought a house. A small one. 2 bedrooms, 1 story, in Beaufort, South Carolina, on the water, quiet. It's mine. There's a 2nd bedroom. You can stay in it, but you come with nothing. You leave Charlotte. You leave whatever life Denise built for you, and you start from scratch. You get a job. You pay your own way. You earn back my trust, one day at a time, starting from zero. He stared at me. And for the first time in years, I saw my son. Not the salesman, not the husband, not the weak man who'd traded his father for his wife's approval. I saw the boy who used to sit on my lap while I did the crossword puzzle. The kid who cried when his goldfish died and insisted we give it a proper funeral in the backyard. I don't deserve that, he said quietly. No, I agreed. You don't. But Ruth would want me to offer it anyway. The 30 days came and went. Jim handled the legal machinery with the quiet efficiency of a man who had been waiting his entire career for a case this satisfying. The land reverted to the Mercer family trust. The house, every nail and shingle, became trust property. Denise was served an eviction notice. She had 14 days to vacate. She tried to fight it. Her lawyer, a young, aggressive woman from a firm I suspected Victor Kaplan had referred, filed an emergency motion, claiming the trust was invalid, that my contribution was a gift with no expectation of return. The judge, a 6'2" former prosecutor named Harriet Bowman, read my trust document, reviewed the recordings Jim submitted as evidence, and dismissed the motion in under 40 minutes. Mrs. Mercer, Judge Bowman said from the bench, you are not the victim in this courtroom. The trust is clear. The evidence is damning, and your attorney's argument is creative but fundamentally dishonest. Motion denied. You have 14 days. The criminal case moved slower, as they always do. But 3 months later, Denise was formally indicted on 2 counts of attempted forgery and 1 count of conspiracy to commit fraud. Victor Kaplan was indicted as a co-conspirator. His broker's license was revoked. The house in Myers Park sold for $2.15 million. After paying off the mortgage and Kevin's debts, Denise had racked up in both their names $1.1 million went into the Mercer Family Trust. I had my money back. Not all of it, but enough. Kevin arrived in Beaufort on a rainy Thursday afternoon. He drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic he'd bought for $6,000, the only thing he could afford after the debts were settled. He brought 1 suitcase and a cardboard box of books. The first month was hard. We barely spoke. He'd walk on the waterfront for hours, staring at the shrimp boats. He looked hollowed out, lost. I let him be. He got a job at a local accounting firm, entry level. He answered phones and organized files. A man with a business degree and 15 years of sales experience, answering phones for $18 an hour. He didn't complain. Not once. One evening in April, I was sitting on the small back deck watching the sun drop into the marsh. The air smelled of salt and pluff mud, that rich, dark, alive smell that is uniquely low country. I heard the screen door creak. Kevin stood behind me. He was thinner. His expensive clothes were gone, replaced by khakis from Target and a polo shirt that had seen better days. But his eyes were different. Clearer, steadier. "Dad," he said. "I need to say something." I waited. "I'm sorry." Not the way I said it before, when I was scared and desperate. I mean it now. When I've had time to understand what I did. I chose her over you. I let her put you in a garage. I told myself it was temporary, but that was a lie. I told to avoid being brave. Mom would have been ashamed of me. I'm ashamed of me. He sat down in the chair next to mine. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know that I see it now. All of it. I looked at my son. I thought about Ruth. I thought about her garden in Savannah, the one she'd tended for 20 years. She used to say that the best plants were the ones that got cut back hardest. "They grow back stronger, Harold," she'd tell me, elbow deep in mulch. "You just have to trust the roots." "Kevin," I said, "an apology is like a foundation. It's necessary, but it's useless until you build something on top of it." He nodded. "I know. Then start building." We sat there together as the sun disappeared and the marsh turned gold, then purple, then black. The frogs started up. A heron glided low over the water. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The silence between us was different now. It wasn't empty. It was the silence of 2 men, sitting on a foundation, looking at the empty lot ahead of them, deciding what to build. Here's what I learned at 67 years old. Love your children unconditionally, but protect your assets like your life depends on it, because it does. It's the only thing standing between you and someone who sees your kindness as weakness. They called me the old man. But this old man spent 38 years catching people who thought they were smarter than the system. And in the end, the skills Ruth used to tease me about the obsessive record keeping, the suspicion, the insistence on reading every line of every document, those skills saved my life and my son's future. Denise is awaiting trial. Victor Kaplan lost his license and his reputation. Kevin is rebuilding. Slowly. Honestly. One $18 an hour day at a time. And me? I'm sitting on my deck in Beaufort, watching the water, drinking my coffee, and waiting to see what my son builds next. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe. Now, tell me in the comments, was I too hard on my son, or was hitting rock bottom the only thing that could save him?